Hey, Deej here. Had a lot of requests to explain what type of equipment I'm using and what the settings are on pedals, the amp, etc. In order to get the sound, the tone that I get out of my guitar. So first of all, I will tell you, this is a Gibson SG Standard. I've replaced the pickups with DiMarzio humbuckers. They are the PAF Joe on the neck and the Mojo on the bridge. Those are Joe Satriani helped design the sound on those, and so they're high output, they're humbuckers. They really enjoy being finessed and not so much hammered. The kind of the lighter you play them, the more you get out of them, which is interesting. It took me a while to get used to that. The electronics, your tone knobs, volume knobs, switch, input jack, all of that stuff comes out as one piece and was replaced as one piece. I put in a what's called the Ultimate SG. It's produced by Jersey Shore Guitar Garage, and obviously from Jersey. And that's push-push technology, so if you push the knob, you can split the pickup. Push it again, it'll reverse phase. I mean, it's got a lot of cool different things like that. I typically have the front two in and the back two out. The back two are set on 10. The front two are down to 7. And that just seems to give this guitar the best sound. So that's something you have to play around with. I know we all have different guitars, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the guitar, but just wanted to tell you that's the basis of the sound right there. Now, right now I'm on a clean channel so that you can hear what the amp sounds like on a clean channel. It's a Blackstar HT5. We'll take a look at that in a minute. It's only a 5-watt amp, but it's a practice amp ultimately, but it really is good for small clubs, even almost medium-ish size clubs, and especially if you're miking it through the PA. I mean, this thing it's got a fantastic sound. I haven't taken my big amp out for a while. But I plan to do that because it's beautiful. But it doesn't have an MP3 input. I might have to stick with this little guy. So clean sound. So it's got a nice clean sound. Right now I have the gain setting on about a quarter of the way, so like 9 o'clock ish, and this is what it sounds like there. So what I tend to do is I like to push the gain up a bit. 9's a little bit light. If I'm using the PRS, which has much cleaner pickups, I'll push the gain almost all the way up. With this guitar here, this one's pretty hot, so goes to right around the middle, almost 12 o'clock, maybe a little bit higher, 12 to 1 o'clock. It gets the best sound out of it. So I'm just going to tweak that and sit right back down, and then we'll take a look at that in a sec. So see, it's got a nice bite to it, very clean distortion, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's got a real nice distorted sound. I like the Blackstar amps a lot, and I think their distortion channel is fantastic. And by the way, I'm not endorsing Blackstar. Well, I am, but they're not paying me. So next, I'm going to shut this off for a second and carry it over and take a look at the amp, and we'll talk about the settings on the amp and come back and look at the pedal board. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at the Blackstar HT5. It's a 5-watt amp. I think I mentioned already it's only 5 watts as a practice amp, but it actually does very well in small clubs. Okay, reverb. We'll go from right to left here. Reverb is set around 9 o'clock, so it's straight to the left. So that's minimal reverb. The ISF knob right there is something that takes you from American distorted sound on the left all the way to the right is a British distorted sound, and right straight up is a combination of American and British distorted sounds. So if you turn that sucker back to about 9 to 10 o'clock, 9:30ish, I usually set it at 9:30 to 10 o'clock, right in that range, and so it's more American than British. But it's still starting to turn toward the British. So it's a very delicate coloring, but you can hear it, and I like it at that particular setting right there. Then you have your EQ knobs here, your bass, mid, and treble, and over here is your volume and gain. This is where all the magic happens. You can see on the gain knob there, I have it a little past noon, so if this thing is about straight up, it balances the hiss out pretty well, because you get a little bit of hiss if you turn up distortion too high. And so straight up kind of seems to be the best balance between the minimizing the hiss but still getting a good amount of crunch. And then of course your volume you can adjust from there. That's it won't affect the gain sound. The gain will still sound great no matter what volume you're at, whether you're low or high. This thing has some really cool tubes. It's a hybrid amp, solid state and tube, and because of that they were able to build in some features that allow you to play perfectly distorted sound at a low volume, which is unusual for many amps. Okay, then there's your clean channels. I don't use those much. All right, so that's the amp. Okay, so now we're gonna look at the pedals. The first pedal, we're starting from the right side and going to the left of the pedal board. First pedal on the right there is just a button to switch between the clean channel and the distorted channel. That's always stepped down to distortion, so the light's always on. Rarely go into the clean channel. Your volume pedal right after that. The volume pedal has a feeds into the Crybaby wah right there. It's a Dunlop Crybaby wah, and so the volume pedal straight into that. But it also has an output. The volume pedal also has an output for a tuner, so it also runs over here to this chromatic tuner. And what's cool about it is you can keep the pedal volume all the way off and still tune your guitar. That comes in really handy in the middle of any situation, really. So nobody wants to hear you tune. Okay, so the next pedal in line is a distortion pedal. But since the Black Star amp has such good distortion, I really never use this. Every once in a while I'll turn it on with some crazy full distortion just to get some kind of unique, really grungy sound. I mean heavy duty distortion. But I rarely use it because it doesn't really help the tone for prolonged playing. It's just for short bursts. Okay, so I'm actually probably going to pull that off and replace it with a phaser or some such thing. I'm still toying around with what's next. So this one here is, if you're going to have one pedal, this is it. Ibanez Tube Screamers, TS9. The Ibanez, and they have a newer model as well. Both of them are just fine. Of course, the newer one's more expensive, but the TS9 is an overdrive pedal sustainer. So let's talk about the settings on that one. We'll go from left to right. So that knob on the left side, that's the amount of saturation, the amount of effect. So that's turned up pretty high, almost, it's about 2 o'clock. We want a significant amount of saturation, and that's so that the overdrive will really carry and sustain. The bottom center knob there is the tone. So all the way left is bass, all the way right is treble. So you find your EQ it there. So when you step the pedal on, it still has about the same tone as when it's off. So that's kind of how you work that. And then the same thing for the knob on the right. That's your volume knob. And you want to set it so that when you step on the pedal, it only increases volume very slightly. Not a lot, but just very slightly. You want the pedals to be fairly seamless. When you step on a pedal, you don't want to hear a big jump or a boost in sound, a click, or any type of thing. You just want to step on it and have the effect come in almost seamlessly. Beyond the tube screamer actually is this ISP Decimator 2 noise gate. This is super important because it cuts out a lot of the unnecessary hum, hiss, buzz, whatever kind of line noise you get out of your cables, your guitar, your amp. You know, we always have this miscellaneous little noises, and this cuts out the majority of it. So that's a critical piece right there. And that's set at about 12 o'clock. Okay, knob is straight up. Well, that from there, actually, that goes straight into the amplifier now. So we've got volume pedal to wah to the tube screamer. Let's start over here. Volume pedal to the wah to the tube screamer to the noise gate, and then to the amplifier. Okay, and then the only other pedal I use is this digital delay here, Boss digital delay. The Boss DD7 digital delay goes through the effects loop and the settings. Well, and also we go into, this is a stereo pedal, but it's set up mono. So I go into input A, which is mono, and I go out of output B. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but that's where it sounds best. Okay, so the knobs on this thing are set like this. We start on the left side. That's your volume. Again, you want to set it so that you have a very, very slight increase. You don't want a big drastic change when you turn any pedal on. You want it to be fairly seamless. So that's where this one is set, is right about straight up, a little less than straight up. The feedback knob there is turned all the way off because that gives you a bouncy ping pong sound, which I can't stand. And the effect is the third knob. That's roughly 3/4 of the way up, just a little bit less. We'll call it 230. And the knob on the right is the milliseconds of delay, and that's an 800 millisecond setting right there. So what I'll do is, instead of trying to play and focus on these, etc., I'll put the camera on, and now that you've seen all the pedals, we'll turn them on one at a time and see what kind of effect they have. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll do some kind of random lick, and I'll turn on pedals one at a time so you can hear the difference that they make. Okay, I'm turning on the tube screamer now. So that's my sustain overdrive. Ibanez tube screamer. You see, if you keep your finger moving there too, this is for another video, but if you keep your finger moving there, you carry the sustain on your instrument naturally. The tube screamer feeds off of that, and so your overdrive, it just lasts and lasts, which is really, really cool. Okay, I'm going to shut that off, and we're going to put on the digital delay now. Now what I do with that, I showed you the settings. The reason why they're set that way is because I want this type of a slap back, echo, delay, whatever you want to call it. See, it's relatively quick. It cuts off quickly. And that way there, your sustain notes don't blend into each other and become a big mushy mess. You want them to stay pretty clean, so you want the delay, but you want it to cut off quick. So you saw the settings before. That's how we do that one. All right, and then if I add the tube screamer back in, okay, so now we got the delay plus the sustain, and that really is where the tone comes alive the most. Okay, then of course you can kick on your wah pedal in the midst of this all. And then last but not least, I'm going to leave the tube screamer on. I'm going to leave the delay on, so those pedals are staying on right now. And I'm just going to use the volume pedal. What you do is you pick a note and then you step on the pedal. So notice how I'm picking the note and then stepping. And it'll happen a little quicker than that. I'm exaggerating it so you can get the idea. So this is what we do with that. Okay, you get that kind of a sound. I'm going to stop this for a second, point it at the pedal, and let you take a look at that. So those are chords, and then your individual notes. Okay, that's how you get the kind of string cello-ish type sounds out of your guitar, is simply with the volume pedal. And that's pretty much it. So that's basically how I get my tone. There's obviously the human component to that now, where you've got to put your feeling and emotion into that, and that happens with bends, vibrato, pinch harmonics, etc. And I'll get into some of that and show you what I'm doing, in the hopes that you'll be able to take some of that and incorporate it your own way into your own playing, and see what happens. It'll be fun to watch you come up with stuff, and looking forward to it. And I'm totally glad to help. I mean, I started playing 7 years ago when I turned 50, and there's a thing called the 10,000 hour rule, which says if you play or do anything for 10,000 hours, you will master it. So I am at about hour 7,500-ish, probably a little more than that at this point. So I've got a ways to go still, and I am totally looking forward to it, let me tell you. Okay, anyways, enough about that. Go jam.